It's 5 o'clock in Pirate Country, and it's time to get pumped up with the P-Man. Hit the door and hit the road. 94.3 The Game is going to get you home, and the P-Man's not holding back.
Yes! Yes! Pirates win! Pirates win!
Bring on the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Holy mackerel! Oh, my goodness!
The flagship station of the ECU Pirates.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in. It is Patrick Johnson here with you. A Monday edition of the PJ Show. What a show we have for you today. Jonathan Wagner from On 3 will be on with us. He's got his Field of 64 projections out. So we'll talk to him, ECU alum, Hoist the Colors alum, and also Andrew Carter, who is one of the great writers covering college athletics. He's with the N&O now. He's done a fabulous job there for years and years. So he's in Amelia Island. We'll talk about what could be happening between the ACC and Florida State. They're having their spring meetings, and I'm sure it could get a little awkward. Philip F. Pilkington is producing today's show. Pilk, how are you?
I'm good, Patrick. I had a good weekend. How about you?
I did, thank you. Got to spend it with my mom on Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to Mama J, Debbie, and we had a fantastic time. A little steak, a little beach. What could you do? If had the Pirates won, that would have just made it the best day ever, but we had a good time.
Well, glad you got to spend it with your mother. I unfortunately did not get to see mine, but happy Mother's Day to my mother, and I might get to see her here in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Part of living 4 hours away, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's busy. It's always busy this time of year on the sports side. And it's, excuse me, like that way for months. The allergies, it continues to persist, Pilk. It continues to persist. So we'll hear from some of our guests, as I mentioned. Let's start with obviously what everybody's talking about in Pirate Nation. Tough day, tough weekend, and a tough week for the Pirates. 5-game losing streak and 0-4 for the week. Swept by Tulane. I watched the game Friday, and it just like it wasn't happening. It was like an alternative universe. I must confess I didn't see much of the Saturday game. I kind of kept up with what was going on, but really Saturday night just saw little bits and pieces. And then yesterday, I was gobsmacked at the end. I had no words. No words, Pilk, for what happened yesterday. The former Pirate comes back to strike with Rasmussen against ECU. All right, let's hear from Coach Godwin. He joined our Steve and I go earlier today on Hoist the Colors Radio, where they talked about everything that went down. And they started on our Pirate Report by recapping what went down on Friday.
For most of the year, Trace had to pitch really good, and the offense didn't score a lot. Now, like the last 3 weeks, the offense was unbelievable when Trey pitched. And, I think we had like 3 Fridays in a row that we 10-run ruled somebody, which obviously makes the weekend easier, especially when Root and Shinkman are out. That didn't happen on Friday, so it makes it harder. But I just didn't think we were good offensively Friday early. Then when we got down, I think 5-1, we put up that 4 spot that looked like us, and then we just weren't able to scratch anymore.
More from Coach G on what he told the team after the game.
They're the most connected group that we've ever had here at East Carolina, and that's not a knock against anybody else. But when you have that, you have something special. And the thing I told them last night was, hey, man, don't read into all the crap that's going to be out there, dude. You're the same team that you were a week ago. We've had some adversity, but we really haven't had much adversity other than some injuries that we've been able to manage. But you have 14 weeks in the regular season. 13 weeks we've been pretty daggone dominant. And for 1 week we weren't great. And we didn't win a game or two when we didn't play great. And now you've lost 5 in a row. That's baseball. It's a long season.
The losses were all close losses up until this weekend, and even, yesterday was a 1-run defeat. So, you're looking at, games that could have gone either way, and the Pirates have kind of lived on the edge. They've been competitive in their losses, and as Cliff noted, the offense has been really good. Back to the Friday comment really quick, Pilk. For me, I don't want to say he came back to earth, but, I thought Savage was a little pedestrian. He had that big inning, and then the Pirates answered, and so they put him back out there, which was fine because, you're back it's a brand new ball game at that point. It's tied after ECU had that 4-run, I believe, fifth inning. But, I just that he didn't quite look, I don't know. And Tulane, I thought, and, I'm no expert. I can't tell you what they do as far as tracking what they consider a quality at bat. But I thought Tulane was uber aggressive all weekend at the plate and confident at the plate all weekend, even against you, Savage.
They were, and I think they came in knowing they had to be that way in order to damage this Pirate team because the pitching staff is so good. And like you said, was Trey bad? No, he wasn't bad, but at the end of the day,
he wasn't superhuman.
Yeah, he wasn't superhuman. And look, at the end of the day, if you look at a guy's Cy Young season, no matter who it is, they're going to have one or two bad starts because that's baseball and that's pitching, and it is what it is. And unfortunately, it came this week.
All right, more from Coach Godwin from earlier today as he talked about the status and providing an update on Wyatt Lunsford-Shinkman and Zach Root.
It's really weird, man, with both those guys. It's I'm not going into specifics, but it's just something that we've never dealt with, never heard of. It's a unique, soreness deal. And like I said, I don't want to be too specific because I'm not a doctor, but they're not in pain. And if they were in pain, of course, we wouldn't pitch them. But, there was even a chance that Root could have gone yesterday. He had told AK that he could go on Saturday. So pretty crazy. It's kind of funny, to be honest with you. We went into yesterday's game going, hey, we're either going to start Root or Kaler. And up until, Root was getting ready to get off the mound, it was going to be Root. And then, he just didn't feel 100%. So we, said, hey, Kaler, you got to be ready. And, of course, he was to go out there to start the game. But I think both of those guys are just – and they've never – either one of them have ever had arm stuff going on. So it's also tough to navigate mentally. So it's a – double-edged sword that we got to get them physically right, but also mentally we've got to get them in a good headspace that they feel like, hey, I'm good to go.
The scenario that Lunsford-Shinkman was brought in yesterday, Pilk, seemed to be a scenario that was, not high leverage in the sense that there was traffic, but a comfortable scenario. Okay, you're working a clean inning to start, and he's been so good this year coming in and working and getting Pirates out of jams. So with Lunsford-Shinkman coming in, you had to feel really confident about the spot you were putting him in, even though he had not pitched in a while.
Yeah, when he came in, like you said, ninth inning on Saturday, tie ball game. And I think when a guy comes in like that, you want to give him a clean inning. Cliff Godwin put him in a situation to succeed. Unfortunately, the kid leads off with a triple.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's no longer a clean inning. I think it was only like the second pitch, and now you're having to throw, no outs and a guy on third. And when you haven't pitched in a while, it's not the situation you want to be in. Nobody could have predicted it. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. It happened, and here we are.
As a result, Danny Beal stepped up this weekend.
That wasn't the plan, to be honest with you. Of course, when he comes in the game, I think we're down 5-0 already, and he gets us out of a jam. And he had some really quick innings in there after he got settled in a little bit. I think he had a couple solo homers, but he kept coming back in the dugout, and I never spoke to him. And AK just kept going back, hey, says he feels great, and he's not coming out of the game. So, you got to lean on your seniors with that. And look, man, he was unbelievable. But our plan was not to throw him 88 pitches yesterday. That was not the design. We were hoping to, get the lead and then go to the bull. But he just kept going out there and just having quick innings and saying, hey, I'm not coming out of the game. So I'm super proud of him.
The plan right now on Cut 6, Pilk, is for Trey Savage to go on Thursday.
That's the plan. We're going to make sure he feels good. Look, we say this all the time, but, Trey's career, Zach Root's career, Shinkman's career professionally means a lot more to me than us winning a baseball game. So I want to make sure he feels good, but the plan is if he feels good, he'll go on Thursday.
And Coach G says that the Pirate faithful are going to be needed this week.
I think it's very important for the fans to be super positive for especially those guys who have poured their heart and soul into the program. You look at, and I'm probably going to miss somebody for sure, but like J-Dub, who's a fifth-year senior. Of course, I have special place in my heart for fifth-year seniors because they've been here longer than anybody else. And for J-Dub, who was a walk-on coming out of high school to, being one of the best catchers in the country, super special. Joey Barini, same thing, walk-on to, being a starting shortstop for the past 2 years for a top 10 program. Jacob Starling, what he's meant to us, not just this year, for his entire career. Carter Cunningham's only doing this for 3 years, but what he's done for our community, our university, for our baseball program, the homers that help. And, the guys like, Trey Savage and, a couple others that, are going to be selected professionally in the draft. And this is their last year that they'll play for East Carolina. So I think it's super important for our fans to come out and support our guys and being as loud as possible in every opportunity that we get to play here at Clark LeClaire.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Pirates later on with Jonathan Wagner from On 3. He's out with his Field of 64 projection. Speaking of baseball, tomorrow, D1 Baseball's Kendall Rogers will be with us. That'll be a big interview. And later in the week, we're going to have Christy Overton Johnson. Kurt Kraft will be with us later on in the week. Pilkington's going to tell you how track and field wrapped up things at the AAC event this weekend. Parker Bird will be with us in studio later in the week. Brian Mull, so we got a lot to get to. Right now, a timeout. When we come back, we're going to shift our attention to this ongoing some awkward times. It's like the middle school dance. Awkward times in the ACC and in Amelia Island this weekend as Florida State, ACC, battling in court. Clemson's in there, and they're meeting. All of the presidents and ADs are meeting this weekend in Florida, or this week. We'll get Andrew Carter on from the News and Observer to give us the latest on that, and then Wags on Pirate Baseball and the regionals. So packed hours still to come. Happening this week in Amelia Island. It's got to be a heck of a time. The ACC spring meetings are going on. Andrew Carter, who's a guy that's got some connections to Eastern North Carolina, he joins us with the N&O for many, many years covering sports and the Tar Heels, but now is one of their enterprise sports reporters. Does great work, always has. Andrew, great to have you on the radio, and you now join your one-time colleague Jeff Gluck as a guest from days of yore on the Patrick Johnson
Travis
show.
On too.
Yeah, we need to get him on. Forget about old Boyd. He has nothing of any redeeming value to say on here.
You know what? We should have how about a reunion sometime? Have Boyd on, get Gluck on, Travis, me. We could have an old school, 2004 Telegram roundtable.
I think that'd be
I
great.
think that'd do well.
Think about this. You have, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, Andrew was at the Rocky Mount Telegram the same time that Gluck was there. My buddy Jason Boyd was the sports editor who was at Greenville and Washington and now is with WNCT and their digital, helming that. And then Sawcheck, who is he writing for now? Or what's he doing?
So he is with an outlet called The Score,
Okay.
covering Major League Baseball. He's been at a bunch of big-time places. He's written a couple books.
Oh, geez.
I mean, I'm dragging up the caboose here, or the rear, whatever. Gluck is like the foremost NASCAR rider out there, and Travis has become this huge, big-time national baseball guy.
Jeez.
And I'm just trying to stay employed.
Well, look, we all are. We all are, undoubtedly. So Andrew wrote a really great piece Friday. Tried to get him on Friday, just couldn't work it out, about Florida State and the ACC and that burgeoning marriage. But like several marriages, it just sort of has fizzled out here at the end. The thrill is gone, as they say. I have to imagine this makes for some very interesting meetings or atmosphere surrounding the meetings that are going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be sort of an awkward scene down here. I wrote another separate thing, just kind of a primer about what to expect this week. And I used the word dysfunction or dysfunctional so many times I had to go back and find a thesaurus and find it different word to describe it. But that's what it is. I mean, you have Florida State that sued the ACC. You have Clemson, obviously, that has also sued the ACC. The ACC has countersued both. The ACC faces another lawsuit in Florida with the Attorney General,
Right.
Suing the conference over the ESPN contract and trying to make that a public record in that state. And so it's a weird time in the league facing these lawsuits. It's a weird time kind of facing this existential crisis, if you will, about the financial situation. And so, I mean, I think it's fair to say it's just going to be a strange vibe down here. And then, you have all that weirdness, and then you have 3 other schools that are coming in. And there's going to be reps and their ADs and their coaches here this week. So you have like one group of people that's going to be really excited about being here at ACC spring meetings, and then you're going to have another contingent of folks that's like, we want no part of this and we're ready to leave, kind of a thing. So that that adds a strange dynamic. And oh, by the way, there is some important business stuff to take care of, here this week too. So it's going to be, I think, an interesting few days. And this is kind of good timing that we're talking now because they're about to get going.
Andrew Carter is with us. In and O's Andrew Carter at _Andrew Carter on X to follow him there. He'll be at the meetings. He'll be reporting on it. It looks like that one of the suits, maybe it's the lawsuit that was filed in Mecklenburg County in Charlotte, where the ACC sued Florida State, is going to the state Supreme Court. Did I hear that correctly earlier today?
It is, yeah. So basically, Florida State, appealed an original ruling by the North Carolina Business Court that basically rejected FSU's attempt to more or less have that case thrown out. And right now, both sides, FSU and the ACC, I mean, this gives you an idea, too, of how slowly this is all progressing. It's been since December that this case started, and 5, almost 6 months later, they're still arguing about, which case is the one that should decide it. Because the ACC filed one in North Carolina, in Mecklenburg County. It got moved to the North Carolina Business Court. FSU obviously filed its suit down in its home county in Florida, in Leon County. And so they're arguing about venue and which one takes priority and this and that. So, FSU lost round 1, so to speak, in North Carolina, with the judge basically rejecting its argument to have that case thrown out. They're appealing that ruling, taking it to the state Supreme Court. And there's rumblings that if they lose there, they could try to take it to the national Supreme Court.
Oh, gosh.
Which wouldn't necessarily surprise me.
Yeah.
All of which is to say, it's still – there's been a bunch of motions and different filings and briefs and all this, but we're still the actual argument phase, especially of the FSU case, which was filed earlier than the Clemson case, it hadn't even started yet. We haven't even gotten into, the actual merits of the arguments that FSU is trying to make and that the ACC is trying to make. We're still arguing about, logistics, essentially, and where this really should take place and which case matters ultimately.
Wow. Andrew Carter joining us here from the News and Observer. In my mind, Andrew, when you sort of look, well, let's talk the television aspect of this. Is there, and I caution people all the time, because I mean, like your inbox and DMs blow up, my texts blow up. When I talk to people, have you heard this? And unfortunately, they're getting, in a lot of cases, news from somebody who's got a vlog on YouTube or something. I mean, you've never heard of. Yeah. And so I like to go to people that know what's going, we've had somebody from the, Sports Business Journal. We talk to Friedlander. So, I mean, we try to talk to people who are in the know and are in the weeds on this, like you are. What is the truth of a possible reevaluation period in February with the ESPN contract? Is that fact or fiction?
As far as we can tell, it's fact. I mean, that's something FSU alleged in its filings, something that's brought up a number of times. Now obviously the ACC has been hush-hush about everything related to the nitty-gritty of its contracts with ESPN, but all indications are that that's true. I think, we're hoping, I know I'm hoping down here, I'm sure several of my colleagues are as well, that Jim Phillips can provide some clarity and shed some light on that. Like, hey, does the ACC actually have a guaranteed television contract with ESPN that extends beyond 2027? Because if not, that is kind of a bombshell. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
It does raise questions about if ESPN does not choose to extend it, which allegedly it would have until February of next year, February of 25, to decide whether it wants to extend it. I mean, that's a huge thing if it doesn't get extended. That raises questions about, the ACC network. Does it just go away? All these schools are they released from the grant of rights, if you will, after 27, if and when that deal expires? But all indications are that that's true.
Wow.
It is one of those things that's difficult to grasp in some ways as a journalist and someone trying to cover this stuff with a basis of fact and, not just spread opinion or what you think might happen around, because no one's seen the contract, and I don't like to make claims based on stuff that I haven't actually seen.
Sure.
But no one has seen that contract. The ACC has been trying, so hard to keep it under wraps. I get it to an extent because, it does contain some legit trade secrets, if you will, and, different details of financial amounts and stuff that could hurt both sides on the open market, whatever. But there should be some clarity about how long the deal actually lasts.
Sure.
I think that's something that should be made public, and they should be open about. And if you go back, and I did this, if you go back and read some of the press releases that the ACC released upon the announcement of the ACC network, which they announced that in 2016, but it was going to launch in 2019. And if you go back to those 2016 press releases, it is worded very carefully that I think it says something like, the launch of this network allows for the continuation of the ESPN deal through 2036. There's some sort of careful wording in there,
right?
Where if you reread it with the context of what FSU has claimed, you can be like, okay, well, they're not saying definitively that this contract goes through 2036. They're saying it allows basically for the opportunity that it will, not stated, obviously, assuming that ESPN extends it.
Right.
But I'm hoping for some clarity on that this week and some other things, because that is a huge thing. I mean, I tend to think that ESPN has a great deal. I think it's favorable to ESPN. I tend to think there wouldn't be much of a reason for them not to extend it. But without that guarantee, it does raise a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, and that's, a pretty good bargain locked in considering where rights fees are going. Andrew Carter, News and Observer with us. Amelia Island is where he is for the uber awkward. More awkward than a middle school dance. The first middle school dance for all the youngsters. Remember how awkward those were, Pilk? More awkward than that, the ACC meetings going on.
I was never even invited to one, so I wouldn't know.
Sweaty palms. It was not a good time. So let me ask you this, Andrew. What's your gut telling you? Obviously, you don't know how courts are going to behave, but what is your gut on there's no appetite for the ACC to negotiate with Florida State or Clemson at a reduced departure fee. Florida State doesn't have this huge endowment, so I just don't know. You're risking bankrupting your entire university if you do get out of this deal. I mean, on both sides, it seems just fraught with all kinds of peril.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, here's the thing about any potential settlement, and I think you nailed it, that the ACC has no motivation or reason really at this point to go down that road, because the conference is fighting for its survival is the reality of it. I think you can distill it down just to that. And Florida State has posited a number of how much it might cost to exit the ACC. At first they come up with, I think it was $572 million that would cost if you extrapolate the value of rights fees, the length of the grant of rights, assuming it does last, or the contract rather, assuming it does last through 2036. I saw another thing they came up with, I think in court, that it might be closer to $700 million. So if you're the ACC, and Florida State wants to settle, you say, okay, well, cut us a check for $570 million
Right. Yeah.
or 700 or whatever the number is. Because I think, again, the ACC has an obligation to its other members to keep this thing together. And there's no motivation on behalf of the league to settle this thing. I think the league feels good about its arguments in court. Again, we haven't even really gotten into the nitty-gritty of the arguments on either side. But I think from reading what FSU has alleged in different filings, I think there's some questions about the legal credence of some of its arguments, how much weight they might hold up or hold in court. And so I think the ACC would be content to drag this out and see where it goes. I do think if it looks like at some point that the ACC is in peril or, and this is why the venue question is so important because, if you get a favorable judge on behalf of Florida State in Florida, and I'm not going to suggest that judge in Leon County is that.
Right.
But if you do get some home cooking a bit, if it looks like FSU is, in good shape in that case, well, maybe that does compel the ACC to come to the negotiating table and cut a more favorable deal to FSU. But until then, why would you do that?
Right.
And we are a long time away from that even becoming a possibility. I think we're we could be more than a year away from getting to that kind of point, maybe years.
Yeah.
With the way things are going.
Let me get
so
you out.
Until then, I basically think it's going to drag out.
Let me get you out of here on this. What are the powers that be in Chapel Hill doing right now?
I mean, it's interesting. I think there's a power struggle at UNC to an extent. I think you have a group of newer Board of Trustees members who are, I don't know what the appropriate way to describe it would be, but a little bit against the grain of typical traditional UNC thinking. I'll put it that way. Folks who might be more aggressive about getting UNC into a different conference. I do think you have an old school allegiance there to the ACC. Obviously, UNC, a founding member of that league. Obviously, really the institution that has been kind of the cornerstone, the flagship of the ACC over the years. You could argue that. So I think thered be a lot of division and reluctance among some of the power brokers there about moving to a different league. But on the flip side of that, I do think you have, some influential boosters, some big money people, some of these trustees folks who, I'll say I think are more comfortable taking a much more aggressive stance in this new age of college athletics that we're in and who kind of want to push leadership to, get out or put UNC in the best position possible, which, of course, is what they should be doing. Now, does that mean UNC is going to join Clemson and Florida State in suing the conference? I would be surprised if it reached that point, but not surprised at all if there's some serious work being done behind the scenes to, make sure they're prepared.
Andrew Carter, News and Observer. Follow him at _Andrew Carter on X. Hey, thank you. I hope we can get you back again soon, and we'll work on the reunion. If our show had a really good budget.
Man, this has been a lot of fun, Patrick. I really enjoy going down memory lane and tell Boyd I said what's up.
I will. If our show had a real budget, I'd just say we go and I take you guys out for dinner. But Gold's show's got the budget. This show doesn't have any kind of budget like that. So.
Well, anyway, we should make that happen sometime no matter what.
Yep, absolutely. Great to talk to you, Andrew. Thank you, buddy.
All right, Patrick. Thank you, man.
Andrew Carter. Great job there. Boy, that was a nice summation of that, I thought. All right, here is Philip the Ref Pilkington with a sports update and Pirate Report. Pilk. In on the Patrick Johnson Show today, we've got a lot of baseball this week. We'll tell you more about that in case you're just joining us. Appreciate Andrew Carter. Now our old friend Jonathan Wagner. Wags from On3.com joins us here. He's released his projections today, the latest Field of 64 projections. Everybody wants to know where ECU is going to wind up after a difficult week, a difficult stretch of 5 games in a row, the longest losing streak in several years for the Pirates. Wags, I know you were kind of like I was. I watched all of Friday, and then yesterday saw the end and was just I was shocked. I kind of was stunned for a moment. It was hard for me to speak because I just was stunned. So Uh, First, just as a fan and as an ECU guy, tough week last week.
Yeah, I think tough is a perfect way to put it. I mean, Friday night, Trey Savage went out and for the first time in a while looked human. And we haven't seen that in a while. And we've gotten used to just expecting to go out and dominate every time Trey takes the mound. And I think Tulane had a great approach against him, and it worked for him. And you lose the opener, and then Saturday I wasn't able to watch a whole lot because I was in PNC Arena, but I got back just in time to see Cliff Godwin getting ejected. And so I walked back in perfect time. It was great timing, but I just knew, I'm like, man, when I go back and look at this, it's gonna be a long game, I feel like, and it was. And then Sunday I thought you played better, but you just couldn't get it done. So it was a frustrating week and maybe at the worst possible time. But yeah, you got to bounce back now.
Wags has been bullish on the Pirates. I'm not going to spoil it here in case you haven't seen it, and you can go to on3.com. Where do you have ECU this week, given the events of the last week plus? Where do you have them in your field of 64 projections?
I have ECU still hosting. I still think they're a safe host, and I don't see a scenario where ECU doesn't host unless they just collapse again down the stretch, which you got to win. But right now, I think after this week, I have them down to 13 overall seed hosting. I think for now, you're out of the top 8 race and you don't control your own destiny anymore. But again, a lot can change. I mean, ECU was pretty firmly in the top 8 mix last week, 2 weeks ago, and now you're a little bit out and you're going to need some help. But I think if ECU comes back and they, sweep Rice, beat Campbell too if that game's played, and then get some help along the way, I don't think top 8 is out of the consideration. But to me, 12 to 13 feels like the right spot right now. I mean, a 5-game losing streak is loud this time of the year. Recency bias, it plays into it, but 13 feels kind of like the sweet spot right now for me.
The other part of that is the conference tournament is very much back in play now as being important for ECU. Not that it wasn't ever, but obviously if you've put together a really strong regular season, you had a little bit of, in the committee's view at least, some flexibility with the conference tournament. Now, again, because of that, as you say, recency bias, I think you want to be in a position where in the conference tournament you've put your best foot forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And the conference tournament is big. I mean, just look ahead to this weekend. Last weekend of the regular season, you play Rice, and they're RPI 173. So even winning those games will hurt you in RPI. So you're, again, and it's something I've talked about in the past, but your margin of error is 0 now. And when you get into the conference tournament, the number of quality RPI teams is few and far between, and there's nobody inside the top 100. Tulane is at 100 even, but they're probably going to finish top half the league. So you look at first round matchups. I mean, South Florida's there at 138. They're in the mix for the last spot. Charlotte's there at 125. So those games become important now because you need to win that. That's going to become your last great RPI opportunity down the stretch, and you need to win it. And if you don't win the conference tournament now, that means you're going to lose twice. And who do those losses come to? Because those losses, again, a team like Rice, RPI 173, a team like UAB 176. If you end up losing one of those games, then it could end up being a difference, whether you're talking about top 8 or whether you're talking about hosting if you struggle down the stretch.
Yeah. Just to fill in the blank here for Jonathan Wagner's Field of 64 projection for On3.com today, East Carolina won as the 13 overall national seed. Duke, the number 2 seed. Blue Devils just came in here last week and looked really, really good against the Pirates, but then lost 2 out of 3 at Georgia Tech. And the only one they won, they had to score a ton of runs. UNCW, who is playing great right now, and then Niagara. So, I mean, that's a tough regional in Greenville. I know the Pirates swept the Seahawks this year, but I mean, I was impressed with Duke. You allow a team like Duke to get its pitching straight. UNCW has been a real giant killer in the midweek here since they last played East Carolina. So that's a heck of a tough region there, Wags.
Yeah, I think it's one of the toughest regions, if not the toughest regional I had in my field today. And it's just kind of how it played out. I think if Duke doesn't end up hosting, which right now I don't think they will, I think they're definitely right there. They're probably my first or second team that got cut. from the hosting range, but if Duke isn't hosting, they're a strong contender to come to Greenville, especially if ECU winds up in that 13-ish so range. And yeah, I mean, we saw Duke in person last week, and I thought ECU played them well for the most part. It wasn't one of those games I came out thinking, oh, we have no chance against them in postseason. But at the same time, it's not going to be a midweek game that time. You're probably going to get ace against ace, Santucci versus Savage, and that's
and
going
their
to be a whole different ballgame.
They've got a lot of bullpen innings, and they have some capable guys in the pen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think pretty much top to bottom, their pitching staff, I think you trust just about everyone if you're them. So that's a team in a postseason is very dangerous. Again, I think I said it last week, but I had Duke in Omaha in the preseason, and when I'm predicting later on once the field's set, that I'm going to have trouble picking against them no matter where they end up, just because of that. And
they've had some injuries, but they have underachieved a little bit. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, they're a weird team. On paper, they look like they should be a top 5 team in the country with their lineup and the depth of their pitching staff and the stars on their pitching staff. But for whatever reason, they've just kind of underperformed over the weekends, and they just haven't put it together when they should. And like Georgia Tech's a good team, but Duke's got to win that series.
Yeah.
And it's weird. They're a weird team, and like you said, UNC Wilmington is not a team to sleep on either. And I think they're more than capable of coming into a regional and winning a game or two. And I don't know, that'd be kind of fun too. Get a little Pinecrest, Colby Wallace, ECU on Pinecrest, and UNCW's ace, RJ Sales, another Pinecrest guy.
Let me tell you something. Seahawks won't be scared coming into that scenario. And nor will Duke. And Seahawks won't be intimidated playing the Devils for sure. So, that'd be uber entertaining. It really would be. And I think it'd be cool for all the fans involved, particularly the UNCW and ECU fans. Jonathan Wagner on3.com is with us. He has his Field of 64 projections. Two teams that are, in my view, Wags, surging. And I want to get what you think the sky is the limit if they continue to play like they have, are Georgia, who's been absolutely white hot, and then Wake Forest, who just swept Clemson this weekend. So how high of a ceiling do these two have as far as overall national seed? Right now you have Georgia at 7 and Wake at 8.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I love this Georgia team. And a lot of it is due to Charlie Condon. He's the best hitter on the planet in college baseball, and he's going to be the first overall pick. And that's a team that's scary. I did not want to be matched up with them because they will out-hit you. And Georgia's a team, I mean, they've kind of been – it took them too long to get ranked this season. They've been a top 25 team for most of this season. Maybe the rankings don't reflect that. But now they appear to be peaking at the right time. And the right time is, of course, in a couple weeks. But right now they are red hot. And I think I have them at 7 now. I'm not sure if I see a path higher than 6, maybe 5, depending on what happens this weekend between Arkansas and A&M. But I think Georgia could sneak into that 5, but that's about their ceiling. And Wake Forest at 8, that's a team, again, it's this past weekend they come out and swept Clemson, but this weekend at NC State, I have no confidence that Wake is going to do what they're going to do because they've been so inconsistent. So NC State could easily take that series and sneak into the hosting range, and if that happens, then I still think Wake Forest hosts, but they're probably down in that 12 or so range. But Wake Forest, I think their ceiling is right about where I have them at 8. I don't see them going any higher than that.
You have Kentucky as the number 1 overall seed. Will they stay there?
I think so. Kentucky is legit. And I think, last season, Kentucky, they started very well. And, you kind of waited for them to come back down to earth. And they eventually did to an extent. But you look at the remaining schedule. I mean, the contenders for the number 1 seed, Kentucky's there. They finish at home against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is the opposite of surging. You have, Arkansas, who I have in that top 3 mix, and Arkansas is at A&M this weekend, but A&M's not playing well, and they're in the top 5 mix as well. So the winner of that is probably going to end up at number 2, but I think North Carolina is going to win the ACC now, so I made that change this week, so they could be in that top 3 mix. And, man, I mean, it feels kind of wide open, to be honest with you. But if Kentucky wins against Vanderbilt and they don't stumble in the SEC tournament, then it feels like it's going to be Kentucky. But after that, anybody's guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, boy, I tell you. And the American, assuming East Carolina wins it, is a one-bid league in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else can sneak in, just RBI-wise.
Right. Jonathan Wagner, Wags, with us here. Great stuff on3.com, and you can find Jonathan's work there. The Field of 64 projections come out mid to late morning on Monday, so check it out next week. Wags, I'm sure we'll talk to you at some point over the next couple of weeks. Also, a plug for Igo's podcast. What is that thing you guys do on Sunday night called?
Bucks on the Pond.
Bucks
Every
on
Sunday
the
night.
Pond. That is clever. And that's an Igo podcast, right?
That's right. Hoist the Colors. Been doing it for a couple years now. Back when I was an intern, back in those days, we started it, and we've been doing it with the three of us for the last couple of years. So
okay. I don't know who
Sunday
the
night.
third guy is. I'm not worried about him. I'm just worried about Igo and Wags. That's all I'm worried about. No offense to the third guy, but
put some respect on Scott Lorbatcher's name.
Lorbatcher? I can't even pronounce
Scott Lorbatcher.
it. Oh, can't even pronounce that. No, our apologies to the Lorbatcher family. All right. Thank you, Wags. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Talk to you guys soon.
All right, back to wrap it up right after this.
The stunning conclusion of the show. It's the P-Man here on 94.3 The Game.
Cliff Godwin ejected on Saturday, and earlier today, Stephen Igo asked Coach Godwin about what precipitated that ejection.
This is my issue with the 20-second clock. You know, by the letter of the law, the clock's supposed to start when the pitcher gets the ball. I would tell you guys this, that most of the umpires wait till they get on the rubber. So if you walk down the mound, you get the ball, the clock's really supposed to start. Well, the hitters are supposed to have their eyes up by 10 seconds. That's the rule. So I had given Dixon a sign, and when I'm giving signs, I'm looking like between Dixon and the guy at first base, so they both can get the sign. I don't see Dixon on my peripheral kind of doing like this. Well, in the meantime, there's a ball from our bullpen because of the bullpen mounds are on the field, and it has rolled down. And the home plate umpire, which I kind of didn't see, but kind of had his hand up, but he had told our dugout to grab the ball. Well, if the ball's in foul territory, there's got to be some savviness of, hey, we got to stop the clock because there's the distraction. You know, they always call time. Didn't do that. The third base umpire, of course, calls it a violation. And I'm trying not to lose my mind then because we've got first and third with Dixon up, and now it's, you know, a 2-strike count. Unfortunately, he strikes out, and then, you know, the home plate umpire comes, hey, you know, is grabbing my attention after the inning's over and said, hey, there's a malfunction in the 20-second clock. And so, of course, I said something that I probably shouldn't have said. But the thing that really, like, I lost my composure on is I just have an issue with umpires, like when you're walking away and, yeah, I said something that I shouldn't have said, but, like, my back was turned and I'm going into the dugout. I was like 4 or 5 steps, and he threw me out, and that's when I lost my composure because I was really more pissed he threw me out because I had my back turned.
I mean, that's poor officiating, isn't it?
That's horrible.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're the ref.
Yeah. So when the third base umpire called the pitch clock violation, the home plate umpire should have said, no.
Right.
You know, I signaled somebody to go grab the ball.
Right. There should have been some communication.
Yeah. Because that's one of those things that you can go back and fix.
Right.
And it's not like an inverted whistle in football. Like you can go, oh, you know, the ball rolled out. Something happened.
All right. Pirates and Camels tomorrow is what is on the docket. So weather pending, of course. Tomorrow, Kendall Rogers will be with us from D1 Baseball. Looking forward to having him. So the Down East Wood Ducks, it's their final go-around in K-Town. And they are going to go to Spartanburg, South Carolina. There's already a team out in the upstate in Greenville, but there will now be one in Spartanburg. Our guy, Alan Smith, is out there. He's been one of the guys tooting that horn. I saw Alan post this weekend, but I guess it was made official either Friday or today, one of the two. But you know the new name for the Down East Wood Ducks? You know what that's going to be, Pilk?
No, I'm kind of scared to ask with how some of these dopey names they've been giving teams.
Oh, this is dopey. The Hub City Spartanburgers.
Oh,
Apparently, Spartanburg must be the hub city.
hub for what?
Well, the hub for the upstate, all the tentacles go out from Spartanburg, they believe. I'm assuming. And then the Spartanburg, I think there was a place out there that used to serve Spartan burgers.
So what did they go back and kill cows from the Sparta that the Spartans raised, and that's where they got the beef from? So they're Spartan burgers.
Don't know.
Ancient Greek burgers.
Don't know. Don't care. But I thought that was interesting, at least to the name. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks to Wags, Jonathan Wagner. Thanks to Andrew Carter. Thanks to you, Pilk. See you tomorrow in the morning on Talk of the Town, and then back here at 5 for the Patrick Johnson Show.